Have you ever felt it? That quiet, gnawing feeling that time is slipping through your fingers, that you're running on a treadmill, busy but going nowhere, that the life you're living is a quieter, duller, grayer version of the one you were meant to live. This feeling isn't your imagination. It is a profound signal, a sacred warning from the deepest part of your soul that is calling you back to yourself. This video is your first step in answering that call. But let's be honest, real transformation is a journey, not a single event. If you are tired of shallow life hacks and are ready to build deep, foundational wisdom, then make a commitment to yourself right now. Subscribe to this channel and let it be your trusted companion on the path to a life of authentic meaning. Stay with us for this one video, and you will discover the single greatest reason you are wasting your potential, and more importantly, you will be given the key to reclaiming every last drop of it. Part 1. The invisible anchor holding you back. Have you ever felt it? That strange, quiet resistance in your own life. The sense that you're running a race with an invisible weight chained to your ankle. You watch your own life almost as a spectator, seeing the person you could be, the achievements you could claim, all of it just on the other side of a chasm you can't seem to cross. It's the unseen anchor holding you in place. You fight it. You resolve to be more disciplined, more focused, more positive. You make the plans, set the goals, and muster all your willpower. For a day, maybe a week, the ship feels like it's finally moving. You feel the wind in your sails. But then, without warning, you feel that familiar, nauseating pull. The anchor snags, digging deep into the seabed of your old patterns. It leeches your energy. It whispers doubts into your ear until they become your own thoughts. It sabotages your best efforts, ensuring your magnificent ship stays stuck in the familiar, stagnant waters of the harbor. You hear it in the groan of your own compromises. You smell it in the thick fog of self-criticism that obscures the horizon. And all the while, the boundless, shimmering ocean of your true potential waits just beyond the breakwater. An ocean where the salt spray of true freedom hits your face, and the ancient starlight overhead is unobscured by the light pollution of the harbor's petty anxieties. Perhaps you've even wished for the weight to disappear. You don't see this anchor. It has no physical form, but you feel its crushing mass in your fatigue, your procrastination, in the quiet ache of a life lived at half-mast. But what if that anchor, this invisible force you've been fighting your whole life, the very thing that seems to be your greatest enemy, wasn't made of iron, but of pure, unrefined gold? What if the very thing holding you back, the source of all this dead weight, contained the high-octane fuel you need to not just sail, but to soar across that ocean? This paradox is not just a clever phrase. It is the secret key to unlocking a life of profound meaning and power. The truth behind it is the very foundation of our journey today, and we are going to begin uncovering it right now. First, you must understand what this anchor truly is. It is not your past. It is not your circumstances, your job, or the people around you. That is only the stage. The anchor itself is a part of you, a disowned, forgotten, and immensely powerful part of your own soul. The brilliant pioneer of the human spirit, Carl Jung, gave it a name. He called it the shadow. And whether you know it or not, it has been the secret captain of your ship, steering you away from the very treasures it was meant to help you find. It's made of every impulse you were told was wrong, every ambition you were taught was selfish. It contains the wild, untamed creativity you meticulously buried under layers of responsibility after a teacher, or maybe a parent, called your biggest dreams childish and impractical. It holds the fierce courage to draw a line and say no. A power you traded for a fragile peace in a relationship or at a job that demanded pieces of your soul as payment. Picture it, that sterile conference room, the air thick with unspoken pressure. A proposal is on the table that makes your stomach churn. Your heart is screaming, "This is wrong. This violates our values. This will hurt people." But you say nothing. You just nod along. That dull ache you feel on the drive home? That is not weakness. That is the immense weight of your buried integrity. The golden anchor sitting heavy in your gut, reminding you of the king or queen you abdicated in that moment. Remember the paradox of the golden anchor? Jung's timeless wisdom echoes this truth. In the darkness lies the gold. The immense, exhausting weight you feel is not the weight of your flaws or your failures. It is the staggering weight of your own neglected potential. It is the gravitational pull of your unexpressed power, your buried talents, your unrealized calling. It feels heavy because it is incredibly valuable. You've tried to pave over it, haven't you? The new diet, the promotion, the dozen self-help books, the endless stream of positive affirmations, all thin layers of asphalt you've tried to lay over this heaviness. But the ground always cracks, doesn't it? The surface always sinks because the treasure beneath it is too massive to contain. Your best attempts to ignore it only highlight its presence. This weight is not the problem to be solved. It is the treasure map where the very heaviness itself is screaming, "The gold is here." But if this shadow, this source of unimaginable wealth, is a part of us, why does it feel like a stranger? Why does it operate in the dark, working against our conscious will? And the most important question of all, how do you possibly reclaim a treasure when it is being guarded by an enemy who wears your own face? Part 2. The stranger in your mirror. We promise to confront the stranger in the mirror, the secret captain of your ship. This is the moment. This stranger, this shadow, is the silent gathering of every vital part of yourself you were taught to disown, to survive, to be accepted, to be seen as good. Think of the righteous fire within you, the power to stand for truth, which was dismissed as wrong anger. Think of the God-given desire to build, to create, to lead, which was shamed and labeled as selfish ambition. Remember the quiet strength of your own heart's tenderness, which the world called weakness, and recall your deep, sacred need for stillness, for time alone to replenish your spirit, which was guilt-tripped into being antisocial or selfish. In the name of fitting in, you took these magnificent essential pieces of your own humanity, the very tools given to you for your life's work, and you locked them away. You packed them into a bag, heavy with shame and fear, and hurled it into the cold, dark basement of your mind. You built a life on top of it, hoping the floorboards wouldn't creak. But here is a truth that is both terrifying and utterly liberating. You did not kill those parts. You only took away their sight. Now they are blind, they are frightened, and they are furious, thrashing around in the darkness of your subconscious. And from that darkness, they are making decisions for you. Have you ever had an outburst of rage that shocked even you? A volcanic eruption over something trivial? That was the prisoner in your basement, your suppressed power to defend truth, finally kicking down the door. Have you ever found yourself inexplicably sabotaging your most important, God-given dream? That was your disowned ambition, terrified of the very light it was created to shine in, because it was taught that to want success is bad. This isn't a malfunction, it's a message, a desperate cry from the most valuable parts of you, demanding to be seen. But how can you possibly know what specific treasures are locked away in your unique shadow? How do you map a territory that is, by its very nature, hidden from your own view? There is a clue, a surprisingly simple everyday signpost that you have been walking past your entire life. And I will reveal it to you in this part of this video. First, you must understand the prison you built. This process of rejecting parts of ourselves is not an act of strength, but an act of profound fear. To hide our perceived flaws, we construct a perfect, polished, acceptable version of ourselves to show the world. Carl Jung called this the persona. It's the friendly smile when you're hurting, the confident nod when you're terrified, the agreeable yes when your soul is screaming no. But the persona is a mask, and every mask casts a shadow. The more flawless and accommodating the mask, the larger, darker, and more powerful the shadow grows behind it. A life lived only through the persona is a performance, not an existence. It is the very definition of a life unlived because it is not your life. It's an act, and the audience you're so desperate to please doesn't even know who you truly are. It is a tragedy of a soul that chose to be a copy when it was created as a masterpiece. So what is that simple, overlooked clue to seeing your own shadow? It is this. Pay very close attention to what makes you unreasonably angry, judgmental, or obsessive about other people. The very things that you cannot stand in others are almost always the disowned parts of yourself, staring back at you from their face. This is the profound psychological and spiritual secret known as projection. When you point a finger at someone in judgment, three fingers are pointing back at you. Do you feel a surge of contempt for someone you see as arrogant? Perhaps you're seeing a distorted reflection of your own buried ambition, your own capacity to lead, which you've labeled as a prideful sin. Does another's perceived weakness or emotional vulnerability make you deeply uncomfortable? It may be your own suppressed tenderness, your own need for compassion, crying out for recognition. When their weakness triggers your disgust, it's because you have taught yourself to be disgusted by your own. You are looking in a mirror and hating the reflection. This powerful principle of projection can revolutionize your relationships and your life overnight. But what if this mental habit is doing more than just making you bitter and judgmental? What if it's the primary unconscious way you are draining your life's energy, giving away your power every single day without even realizing it? In the next part of this video, we will pull the curtain back on this projection deception. We will expose how it keeps you spiritually and emotionally bankrupt, and we will reveal the first steps to stopping it, reclaiming the immense power and clarity you so desperately need to fulfill your true purpose. Part 3. The projection deception, how you give away your power. We've just uncovered a profound secret. The very thing that infuriates you, what you judge most mercilessly in other people, is a direct pointer to a treasure buried in your own shadow. It's a masterful illusion, a grand trick your psyche performs every single day. We call this the projection deception. I want you to imagine something right now. Imagine your soul is a vast, empty movie theater. It's dark, quiet except for the low, electric hum of a powerful film projector. You can almost smell the dust in the air, see the motes dancing in the single beam of light. On the screen, no, the screen is blank. The projector is pointed at you, and you feel a knot of dread tighten in your stomach because you know exactly what's loaded inside that machine. Your unacknowledged parts, the insecurity you deny, the ambition you've labeled pride, the righteous anger you've suppressed, the vulnerability you've deemed weakness. None of it has vanished. It's all film, spooled up and locked in the apparatus. But you are terrified to watch this movie. You are deathly afraid to sit in the dark and see your own unfiltered story. So what do? In an act of primal, psychological self-defense, you turn the projector around. You aim it away from your own inner screen, and you project those images onto the blank canvases of the people around you. Let me tell you about a man. We'll call him Mark, a brilliant painter who hadn't touched a brush in years. He'd spend his evenings scrolling through social media, his heart a toxic cocktail of envy and contempt for the sellouts and hacks getting gallery shows. He saw nothing but their shameless self-promotion and feigned depth. He judged them with the fury of a high priest. But what Mark refused to see was that in every artist he condemned, he was projecting a ghost. The ghost of his own buried ambition, of the God-given talent he himself had betrayed out of fear of failure. He was critiquing their movie because he was terrified to even admit he had a story to tell. This act is so much more than a simple misjudgment of people. It is an act of profound spiritual and psychological avoidance, a deep-seated laziness of the soul. It is infinitely easier to diagnose and condemn the perceived flaws in someone else's life than it is to turn inward and face the humbling, often painful truth of your own. But what is the true cost of keeping that projector aimed eternally outward? What does a life drained by this hemorrhage of life force actually feel like? It feels like a constant, low-grade state of dissatisfaction. It's the novel you never write because you're too busy critiquing the bestseller list. It's the business you never launch because you're obsessed with finding the flaws in someone else's success. It's the deep, authentic relationships you never build because all the energy required for true connection was spent on judgment from a distance. It is an inner world that feels gray, barren, haunted by the ghosts of what could have been, and the precise mechanism of how this deception drains your soul, how it keeps you in a state of spiritual bankruptcy, is about to become crystal clear. Every drop of your attention is a unit of creative power. It is divine energy. It is the sacred currency you are given each day to invest in your life's purpose. When you spend hours obsessed with what someone else did, seething with outrage or scrolling with a heart full of judgment, you are taking that divine currency and throwing it into a fire. You are not just having negative thoughts, you are actively defunding your own destiny. To face your own shadow, by contrast, is the ultimate act of responsible stewardship. It is the moment the soul decides to grow up. It is the courageous, quiet declaration. The problem, and therefore the solution, begins with me. This principle is the foundation of all true maturity, the cornerstone of a life of weight, meaning, and integrity. It is the decision to stop blaming the world for the state of your inner garden and to finally pick up the tools and begin the sacred work of tending to it yourself. Here is exactly how the deception drains you. That precious, creative energy you spend judging someone else's arrogance is the very same energy you were meant to use to cultivate humble, courageous leadership in your own life. That attention you waste resenting another's success is the very same attention you were meant to use to build your own unique contribution to the world. You are giving away the bricks meant to build your own palace, just so you can stand on the sidelines and criticize how others are laying their foundations. You are giving away the water meant to nourish your own garden, just so you can complain about the weeds in your neighbor's yard. You are not just losing power, you are actively, willingly surrendering it day after day, leaving the territory of your own soul barren, undeveloped, and weak. But if this process of turning inward, of taking radical responsibility for our own projections, is so fundamental to a life of power and purpose, why does our entire culture seem to be sprinting headlong in the opposite direction? Why are we relentlessly bombarded with advice to just be positive, to ignore the haters, and to construct a fragile reality of good vibes only? What if this popular, feel-good advice isn't just shallow, but is actually one of the most dangerous soul poisons in existence? What if this is the very philosophy that guarantees your projector remains aimed outward, ensuring you stay weak, judgmental, and spiritually starved? We are about to demolish this powerful modern myth. In the next part, we will expose the deep and tragic weakness hiding at the very core of the positive vibes only mentality, and show you why true power lies not in ignoring the darkness, but in having the courage to face it. Part 4. The dangerous lie of positive vibes only. You have been sold a beautiful, comforting, and profoundly dangerous lie. It's whispered in wellness circles, plastered on coffee mugs, and chanted like a mantra across social media. Positive vibes only. It sounds so enlightened, so peaceful. But in reality, it is a declaration of spiritual bankruptcy. It is not a sign of strength. It is the ultimate strategy of avoidance. It is the philosophy of a person who is terrified of life itself. Imagine a gardener who stands in his field and declares, "I will only acknowledge the flowers. Weeds do not exist in my reality." He turns his back on the nettles and thistles, refusing to even look at them. He hums a pleasant tune while they silently, relentlessly multiply in the shadows he refuses to see. What becomes of that garden? The weeds, thriving in the darkness of his denial, wrap their roots around the very flowers he cherishes, choking the life from them until his entire garden is a barren, overgrown wasteland. This is the promise of positive vibes only. It is a guarantee of inner ruin. True strength is never the ability to ignore the darkness. That is merely denial. True, unshakable strength is forged in the courage to face the darkness and integrate its lessons. A person who has honestly confronted their own capacity for bitterness and envy is infinitely more capable of genuine gratitude than one who simply pretends those feelings don't exist. Why? Because by confronting the poison, they learn to create the antidote. They own their internal landscape. The darkness does not control them from the shadows because they have had the courage to bring it into the light of awareness. There is a precise term the great cartographer of the soul, Carl Jung, used for this spiritual poison of one-sided positivity. Understanding it is the key to inoculating yourself against its pervasive influence. We will reveal it in just a moment. First, you must see the danger for what it is. To refuse to look at your shadow, your jealousy of a friend's success, your simmering resentment toward a family member, your deep-seated fear of failure, is like refusing to look at a deep wound that is becoming infected. You can cover it with a smiling bandage. You can tell everyone you're fine. But underneath, unseen and unacknowledged, the infection spreads, poisoning your entire system. A life built on the sandy foundation of positive vibes only is a life lived in a house of cards. The first real storm of adversity, a betrayal, a loss, a failure, will not just shake it, it will instantly obliterate it because the structure has no anchor in the solid ground of reality. And reality, the world as it was created, is composed of both light and shadow, joy and pain, success and struggle. To deny half of life is to be half a person, living half a life. The term Jung used was dangerously one-sided. He understood a profound spiritual law. Any virtue, when taken to an extreme and completely disconnected from its balancing opposite, inevitably corrupts into a vice. Love without the boundary of truth becomes enablement. Peace without the courage to confront evil becomes cowardice. And excessive positivity that systematically denies reality becomes a brittle, toxic naivete. It creates a shocking lack of resilience. True, God-given resilience is not found in a fragile bubble of wishful thinking. It is forged in the searing heat of the furnace. It is the strength of steel that has been hammered and plunged into fire, time and time again. You do not become strong by pretending the fire doesn't exist. You become strong by walking through it. So you're convinced. The shallow comfort of positive vibes only is a trap. You understand that ignoring the weeds only guarantees they will take over the garden. You must stop projecting. You must stop denying. You must turn and face the stranger in your mirror. But the moment you make that decision, a new feeling arises, doesn't it? A cold dread, a wave of apprehension. How do you even begin this journey without being completely overwhelmed by what you might find in that darkness? How do you open the door to that basement without having its furious, blindfolded prisoners rush out and overtake you? Is there a safe, practical, and deliberate first step? Yes, there is. It is not a leap into the abyss, but a single courageous step onto solid ground. And in the very next part, you will be given the first concrete tool, a powerful yet simple method to have your first safe conversation with your shadow and begin the process of reclaiming the gold it has been guarding. Part 5. Your first safe conversation with the shadow. You stand at the threshold of a door you've kept locked your entire life. We have talked about the treasure behind it and the weight of ignoring it. Now, as promised, I am handing you the key. It is not complex. It does not require a grand ritual or a dramatic confrontation. Your first step on this sacred journey is simple, private, and profoundly effective. You will need a pen and a piece of paper. This is not mere journaling. Do not mistake it for a casual diary entry. This is a deliberate act of radical honesty, a private appointment with your truest, most complete self. Tonight, before the world goes quiet and you are alone with your thoughts, find a moment of stillness. Ask yourself just one of the following questions. Choose the one that resonates most deeply, the one that makes you feel a slight, unnerving tremor of recognition. And then you must write. Write the answer without a filter, without correcting your grammar, and most importantly, without the crushing censorship of your own inner judge. Let the truth flow, raw and unpolished, onto the page. Here are the questions. 1. What or who did I truly resent today, even if it was just for a fleeting moment? 2. When did I feel like a fraud today? In what conversation, in what meeting, did I wear a mask that wasn't me? 3. What truth did I avoid telling today, either to myself or to someone else, out of fear or a desire for comfort? 4. Who did I judge harshly in my mind today, and for what specific quality or action did I condemn them? As you begin to write, you will likely feel a powerful wave of resistance. Your mind will offer you 1,000 convincing distractions. It will tell you this is a pointless, negative exercise. As the words appear on the page, you might even feel a sting of shame, a flush of disgust at your own admissions. You will be tempted to stop, to crumple the paper and to retreat to the familiar comfort of denial. But what if that feeling, that very disgust, that sharp pang of shame, is not a signal to stop, but the clearest possible sign that you are finally on the right path. In fact, the reason this negative reaction is a profound indicator of progress will become clear in just a moment. First, understand the purpose of this sacred act. The goal here is not to wallow in your own perceived ugliness. It is not to judge your own answers. The goal is simply to observe. It is the courageous act of making the unconscious conscious. This is how you begin to reclaim your power. Monsters, you see, derive their terror from the unseen. They are most frightening when all you can hear is their scratching beneath the floorboards, their whispers from the shadows. The moment you summon the courage to bring them out of the basement and into the steady light of your awareness, a miracle happens. They begin to shrink. You see them for what they truly are. Not terrifying demons, but scared, wounded, and neglected parts of you. That seething resentment is a part of you that feels profoundly unseen. That biting judgment of another is a part of you that is crying out for its own potential to be unleashed. They do not need your condemnation. They need your compassionate attention. This exercise is not an act of self-flagellation. It is an act of profound self-compassion, rooted firmly in the soil of truth. Now let's return to that feeling of disgust. The reason it's such a powerful and positive sign is this. It means you have struck gold. You have drilled past the layers of denial and persona, and you have hit a genuine buried vein of your shadow. The intense resistance you feel is the shadow's primal fear of being seen, of being known. It has operated in darkness for so long that the light feels like a threat. Therefore, to continue riding through that discomfort, to stay with that feeling without turning away, is your first monumental victory. It is you, your conscious adult self, demonstrating to the deepest parts of your own psyche that you are now in charge. Not your fear, not your shame, you. But as you continue this practice, a new, more sophisticated question will inevitably arise. In a world aching with real problems, a world that needs our help and service, isn't this all a bit self-obsessed? Is it right to spend so much time excavating our own inner world when there is so much to be done outside of it? This is not a cynical question. It is a vital and deeply moral one. And in our next part of this video, we will address it head-on. We are going to completely reframe this entire journey, showing you why this quiet inner work is not the opposite of serving the world, but is in fact the single most powerful prerequisite for doing so with true integrity and strength. Part 6. From self-sabotage to responsible stewardship. And now we arrive at the question that has been quietly rising in the back of your mind. A critical, honest question that must be answered. In a world aching with real pain, a world that desperately needs our compassion and our service, isn't all of this inner work profoundly selfish? Isn't this journey into the shadow just a sophisticated form of self-obsession? The answer, delivered with all the certainty of a spiritual law, is a definitive and resounding no. It is, in fact, the exact opposite. Let me show you what is truly selfish. To remain a slave to your unexamined inner world. To walk through your life as a vessel for unconscious anger, for unacknowledged insecurity, for deep-seated fear. A person ruled by these hidden forces doesn't just harm themselves, they leak this poison into every interaction. They become a storm of unpredictable moods in their own home. They bring an undercurrent of anxiety into their workplace. They unintentionally wound their children with the very same fears that were inflicted upon them. That is the true face of selfishness. To refuse the sacred duty of tending to your own inner garden, and instead, to let your weeds choke the gardens of everyone you claim to love. This journey inward is not an act of self-obsession. It is the highest act of responsible stewardship. I want you to think of your soul, your mind, your very being as a vessel, a cup you were given to hold. For years, perhaps your entire life, this vessel has been accumulating cracks. A crack of resentment from an old betrayal. A crack of inadequacy from a harsh word spoken in childhood. A crack of envy you refuse to admit. When you try to give to others from this broken vessel, what do you offer them? You cannot give them a clean, pure drink of love, or patience, or wisdom. You can only give them what you have, water clouded with your own unresolved pain. You ask them to drink from your bitterness. This work we are speaking of, this quiet, courageous conversation with your shadow, is the sacred process of mending your own cup. It is the act of patiently, carefully, sealing those cracks with the gold of self-awareness. This isn't self-indulgence, it is spiritual sanitation. It is the most profound act of service you can possibly undertake. But this idea isn't some new psychological invention. It's a timeless spiritual principle, a law of human nature so fundamental that it has been beautifully captured in a simple phrase you've likely heard 1,000 times, but perhaps never fully applied to the depths of your own soul. We'll connect this entire journey to that timeless wisdom in just a moment. First, grasp this transformative truth. By taking radical responsibility for your inner world, you stop making other people responsible for your happiness, your peace, and your emotional reactions. You cease to be a source of chaos and become, instead, a source of stability. You become a safe harbor in the storm, rather than another ship being tossed on the waves. This is not about navel-gazing. This is about meticulously preparing yourself for your true purpose. You were given this one life, this one mind, this precious, finite store of energy. To be a good steward of those divine gifts is not just an option, it is your primary moral responsibility. And so we return to that timeless piece of wisdom, the key that unlocks this entire paradox. You have heard it before. Now feel it. The truth is this: you cannot pour from an empty cup. All this time you may have thought that filling your cup meant chasing success, or pleasure, or the approval of others. But that is like trying to fill a cup that is riddled with holes. Shadow work is the process of making your cup whole again so that it can actually be filled. And it is not filled with ego or pride. It is filled with the clear waters of integrity, self-awareness, compassion, and a quiet, unshakable strength. Only from a cup that is truly full, overflowing even, can you give to others without burning out. Can you love others without neediness? Can you serve your higher purpose without becoming resentful? You stop giving people the dregs and finally begin to offer them the overflow. You have stopped wasting your energy on projecting onto others. You have begun the honest, humbling work of self-stewardship, of mending your own vessel. But what is the ultimate reward for walking this difficult path? Where does this journey truly lead? Is the final prize simply feeling a bit better, a bit less angry? Or is it something infinitely more profound? The ultimate prize for this sacred work is the grandest goal of a human life, the fulfillment of the very reason you were created. The sages knew it, and the great explorer of the soul, Carl Jung, gave it a name. Part 7, the ultimate reward, the person you were created to be. So where does this path truly lead? After all the honest conversations, after mending the broken vessel, after facing the stranger in your own mirror, what is the ultimate reward? Is it merely a life with less anxiety, a calmer mind? Those are but the pleasant breezes you feel as you approach the destination. The final prize is not relief from pain. It is the breathtaking fulfillment of your entire existence. The great explorer of the soul, Carl Jung, gave this destination a name. He called it individuation. But we must strip away the academic dust from this powerful word and see it for what it is: the sacred process of becoming the person you were created to be, before the world and its chorus of anxieties told you who you should be. Imagine your true self is a magnificent marble statue, a masterpiece sculpted by a divine hand. But from the moment you were born, the world began to cover it, first with a layer of mud from childhood insecurities, then a thick coat of tar from the compromises you made to be accepted. Then it was wrapped in the cheap plastic shrink wrap of societal expectations. Individuation is the courageous, patient work of taking up the hammer and chisel. It is the art of chipping away all the false parts, the polished mask of the persona, the hardened fears, the suffocating layers of shoulds and musts, to finally reveal the unique, unrepeatable work of art that has been there, waiting all along. The goal is not to become flawless. That is a fool's errand, a pursuit of the ego. The goal is to become whole. It is the divine alchemy of integrating the light and the shadow. It is finding the wisdom to be both firm in your truth and gentle in your compassion. It is the harmony of a mind that can think with piercing clarity and a heart that can feel with profound depth. It is the moment you stop being a house divided against itself and become a unified, integrated soul, standing firmly on the foundation of truth. But as you hear this, a quiet fear may arise. If you chip away everything the world recognizes, if you become this truly unique individual, does that mean you end up alone? A strange hermit on a mountaintop, completely disconnected from the very people you want to love and serve? It's a terrifying thought. But the truth is the precise opposite. Why true individuation is the secret to the deepest, most authentic connection you will ever experience will become crystal clear in just a moment. First, you must picture this person. The individuated soul no longer operates from a place of hunger. They don't need your validation to feel worthy because they have cultivated their own unshakable sense of inherent value. They do not need to play the exhausting games of status and approval because they are secure in their own being, in their own unique mission. They act not from a place of need, but from a place of fullness. Their words have weight because they are no longer hollowed out by the need to please. Their presence has a quiet gravity, a genuine peace that is incredibly attractive and profoundly reassuring to everyone around them. And this is the secret. This is why individuation leads not to isolation, but to profound connection. When you no longer need anyone to complete you, you are finally truly free to love them for who they are. Your relationships cease to be a desperate transaction. I will give you this if you give me that, and they become a genuine communion. You connect not out of a hidden deficit, but out of a true and generous overflow. You stop searching for a harbor in other people, and you become the harbor. Your strength, your peace, your wholeness becomes a place of refuge for the very souls who are still lost in the storm. This all sounds magnificent, a life of purpose, wholeness, and deep connection. But it can also sound distant, like a goal for a future version of you, a destination at the end of a long and arduous road. How does this grand ideal connect to the here and now? How does doing this quiet inner work today stop you from wasting your life tomorrow? In our final chapter, we will bring this entire journey home. We will collapse the distance between who you are and who you were created to be, and lay out the clear, stark choice that is now, at this very moment, right before you. The wasted life of the sleepwalker versus the magnificent, awakened life you were always meant to live. Part 8. The two paths. A wasted life or a lived life. And so we arrive almost at the end of our journey together, and at the absolute beginning of your personal journey. All the concepts, all the truths have led to this single quiet moment of decision. The map has been laid out before you. The choice is now devastatingly, beautifully clear. Before you lie two paths, only two. The first path is the path of the wasted life. It is the wide, well-trodden road of looking away. It is the path of ignoring the shadow. On this path, you will remain a willing slave to the unseen currents of your own inner world. Your unexamined fears will dictate your decisions. Your unconscious resentments will curdle into bitterness that poisons your relationships. You will continue to project your insecurities onto others, creating endless cycles of judgment and conflict that drain the very life from your soul, day after exhausting day. You will live behind a brittle, polished mask, perpetually terrified of being found out, of being seen for the incomplete and frightened person you suspect you are. You will feel that familiar, invisible anchor holding you back, year after dragging year, a silent friction against every noble effort, until one day you realize your ship never truly left the harbor and you have run out of time. It is not a life of grand tragedy. It is something far worse. It is a life of quiet, numbing desperation. The second path is the path of the lived life. It is the path of responsible stewardship, of turning to face the truth. Let there be no mistake. This path is not easier. In fact, its first steps are far more difficult. It demands a courage you may not feel you possess. It requires a radical honesty that will sting. It asks for a profound humility that will force you to your knees. But there is a final, beautiful secret to this harder path. A stunning paradox that changes everything. While the work on this path is more difficult, the life you earn from it is immeasurably easier. How is this possible? The answer lies in the true nature of burdens, and we will reveal it now. On the path of the lived life, you finally stop running. You consciously, deliberately begin the sacred work of integrating your shadow. You take ownership not just of your strengths but of your weaknesses, not just of your light, but of the darkness you have had the courage to make conscious. You stop giving your power away in petty judgments and outrage. You begin the holy and practical work of mending your own cup. You start to fill it with the clear water of self-awareness and integrity, and from that place of authentic fullness, you begin to pour into the lives of others. You become a stable oak in a world of shivering leaves. You finally become the person you were created to be, fulfilling your unique, God-given purpose, not with hollow pride, but with a quiet, unshakable strength. Here, then, is the secret of the two burdens. The path of ignoring your shadow, the wasted life, requires you to carry the unconscious burden of it forever. Imagine being forced to carry a heavy, awkwardly shaped boulder on your back for your entire life. You can pretend it isn't there. You can try to dress around it, but you can never put it down. It makes you clumsy. It exhausts you. It causes you to bump into people, to hurt them unintentionally. It is a dead weight that slowly grinds you into dust. The path of facing your shadow, the lived life, asks something different. It asks you to consciously pick up that same burden, but just for a season. It asks you to have the courage to stop, to set the boulder down, and to look at it, to examine it, to understand its weight, its shape, its texture. It asks you to break it apart with the tools of honesty and humility. And when you do, you make a miraculous discovery. The boulder was never a curse. It was a geode filled with priceless crystals. It was filled with strength, with wisdom, with compassion, with your own unique power. Once you integrate it, the burden is no longer a burden. It is simply your strength. It is the bedrock of your character. You choose a season of deliberate difficulty for a lifetime of authentic freedom. If you realize that envy previously poisoned you and you have now embarked on the path you always dreamed of, envy will subside at that very moment, and so with all other monsters of your shadow. The knowledge is now yours. It is no longer just an idea, it is a responsibility. The map has been laid out. The destination has been revealed. The only remaining question is the one that no one else in the universe can answer. The only question that truly matters. What will you do with the one precious, sacred, and unrepeatable life that you have been given? Part 9, Your Life is Calling. How will you answer? That quiet, persistent ache in the center of your chest, the feeling that you are wasting your life, is not a sign that you have failed. It is not a mark of your inadequacy. It is the final, desperate, and most loving attempt of your soul to get your attention. It is the sound of a sacred alarm ringing in the depths of your being, trying to wake you from a long and fitful slumber. It is not a curse. It is a holy invitation. An invitation to finally stop running. For your entire life, you have been running from the silence, from the mirror, from the disquieting truth of your own heart. Now, you are being invited to turn around, not to face a monster, but to attend a homecoming for the exiled parts of yourself. The parts you locked away in the darkness are not your ruin, they are your redemption. Waiting in that shadows is the untamed creativity you were taught to call impractical. Waiting there is the fierce courage you called anger. Waiting there is the brilliant ambition you were shamed into labeling pride. Waiting there is the profound tenderness you learned to hide, believing it was weakness. These are not flaws to be overcome. They are the disowned members of your own royal court. They are the raw materials of your God-given magnificence, the very substance of your strength. And for years, they have been waiting patiently in the dark for their king or queen to return and reclaim them. In that darkness is not your shame. In that darkness is the gold. But make no mistake, the path to reclaim it is not the easy road. It will demand more of you than the path of denial ever did. It requires the courage to feel, the humility to be wrong, and the discipline to be honest when it is painful. But you must understand this crucial, life-altering truth. Though the work of a lived life is hard, the chronic, grinding, soul-crushing weight of a wasted life is infinitely harder. The pain of this inner work is the clean, sharp pain of a surgeon's scalpel, purposeful, precise, and aimed at healing. It hurts for a season, but it removes the disease and allows for a lifetime of health. The pain of the wasted life, however, is the dull, unending ache of a slow-acting poison. It is the chronic pain of regret, the gnawing bitterness of envy, the heavy fog of a life lived at half-mast. One pain leads to freedom, the other is freedom's slow, quiet death. So choose the path of courage. Choose the purposeful pain that leads to wholeness. It begins today. Pick up the pen, not as a journalist, but as a scribe taking sacred dictation from your own soul. Ask the hard, unflinching questions. Commit to this act not as a chore, but as the highest form of prayer, the prayer of listening. This is the very essence of what it means to be a responsible steward of your own soul. Think of yourself as the keeper of a lighthouse. The world doesn't need you to stand on the shore, smiling and waving a little flashlight of positive affirmations. It needs you to do the hard, often lonely work of climbing the winding stairs, cleaning the soot from the great lens, and polishing the reflectors until they are blindingly bright. You do not do this for your own vanity so you can admire your own reflection. You do it so that ships, lost in the violent storms of life, can find their way home. The world is groaning under the weight of perfect, smiling masks. It is crying out for the rare, healing, and solid presence of a lighthouse. It desperately needs whole, authentic human beings who have had the courage to do their own work. Your real life, the one of weight, purpose, and profound connection, is not a distant dream. It is a present possibility. It is waiting for you, right on the other side of your willingness to begin. Every sunrise is a fresh invitation. Every moment of quiet dissatisfaction is your life knocking on the door of your heart, asking, "Are you ready yet? Are you ready to finally answer the call?" Don't let it wait another day. The knowledge is now yours. The choice is now yours. Your life is calling. How will you answer?